Good morning. You're listening to WXOX LP Louisville 97.1 FM on the dial in Louisville, artxfm.com, streaming out to the world. And of course, the best way is with our app. Very easy, free to download. I take it with me everywhere I go. You are listening to LVA's Arts Talk with LVA and the show produced by Louisville Visual Art. And I'm your host, Keith Waits. And I have two very special guests today. Very special, even though I see them on a daily basis. But they are co-workers, colleagues of mine, here to talk about Louisville Visual Art itself. Kristian Anderson has 18 plus years experience in the arts and culture sector, including a senior policy advisor to the mayor of Salt Lake City. Prior to that, Kristian was for 4 years the executive director of the Utah Museum of Contemporary Art and executive director for the Association of Academic Museums and Galleries in Seattle. He was the founder and host of SLC Culture, a weekly radio show highlighting the arts, culture, and social issues, so he's very comfortable on a radio microphone. For the past 3 years, he was the executive director at LVA, where he achieved fiscal stability and growth during a time when a global pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all nonprofit arts organizations. He oversaw the first phase of renovations for the LVA facility in Portland, and he developed the Artist Resource Series, providing advice and instruction for practicing adult artists. And in partnership with artist and donor Claire Hearn, initiated the Curate, Purchase, and Inspire program designed to foster curatorial practice and install permanent exhibits of art purchased from local artists and community nonprofits. And he's very embarrassed that I just said all that, but I think it's important that we recognize just some of the accomplishments of Kristian as he departs. Now, sitting next to him here is Grant Johnson, who has been the strategic communications coordinator for LVA for how long?
Well, I've been at LVA for 5 years.
5 years, 5 years. Now, he holds an MFA in printmaking from West Virginia University and a BA in religion from Williams College. His work includes 13 years experience teaching all studio art disciplines, art history, film, and art education at the college level. Now, Grant is, and I could go on and on and on about Grant as well, but we'll let Grant sort of speak for himself a little bit more here in this interview. Grant is becoming our interim director. So this is a point of transition in LVA. We've got an outgoing executive director, which I can attest that the staff really liked Kristian. He did a lot of great stuff for the organization. I think the board liked Kristian. We're very sorry to see him go. I think everybody liked Kristian. Very sorry to see him go, but also very excited. You know, it's very nice to have, and I'm not going to do this the whole interview, guys, but I'm just going to take the moment here at the beginning. You know, Grant's been there, knows everything. There's just about no learning curve for him, so it makes such great sense for him to become our interim director. And I think there's a wealth of his experience that maybe LVA hasn't even tapped into fully. So, but we're going to start now with, I'm going to ask Kristian. So Kristian, why are you leaving, man?
So, I was, listening to the news. I had to drive across southern Indiana yesterday. I was coming home from a funeral, and so I've been sort of attuned to the Republican debates. And so I feel like, here we are among the microphone keys, the host that's going to be having some debates. And
I was going to make the analogy if you didn't.
Why am I leaving? First and foremost, because. As I said, I was attending a funeral yesterday. My mother is in hospice. My son is starting junior high. And all of those folks are back west and out of the state. And I just am divided among too many places currently. That is sort of the immediacy. Also, I started feeling as we were wrapping up this successful capital campaign portion for our building remodel that it was a good time for both the organization and personally to take a deep breath. Projects had gotten wrapped up. CPI was in its second year. We'd had a ton of staff stability and fiscal stability. That project was done. And I sort of felt like it was the right time to, if there was going to be a transition, this was the time to do it when everything was sort of in a good place and kind of stable, and I wasn't handing off a ship that had already sort of left port. I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm excited to sort of step back for the next year of my life and not run an arts organization for a while.
Right, because you currently don't have something lined up except to just like take time for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm almost 46 years old, and I think that you get into something and you love it, and years go by and you haven't sort of taken that breath, I think, to assess why you love it and what it is that you're doing. And for me, and that's what I'm excited to do.
Okay. So, and Grant, what are your thoughts as you are coming into this? And I will say, being in the office, Kristian was just gone for 2 days. Grant is already stepping into that role. We're already seeing sort of his style, his sort of, and a certain sort of ease and a lot of communication. What are your thoughts about coming into this position?
Well, I'd like to take an opportunity to talk about my perspective on what Kristian has done. So
Mm-hmm.
I think again, maybe focused on how it sets up the transition. As you said, Kristian came in and righted the ship with regard to finances. He was able to establish some initiatives that really have good legs, are going to be going for a while, and that was extremely fortunate for the organization.
You might not have been so eager if things were a mess.
Right. Sure, but LVA needed that, and it sets the table for, and that was something that Kristian was able to do because of his unique set of experiences and skills. They were a perfect match for what the organization needed at the time, and it at this moment, as he said, it's a right moment for him, but it's also really a right moment for me, and he has made it possible with the work he did for me to bring my set of skills and experience, and I think it's a good fit for what the organization needs in this transitional period. So, as you mentioned, I've got extensive experience with art education, which is kind of a centerpiece of LVA's programming. I'm a working artist myself. That allows me to connect with the professional development aspect of what LVA does. And so, again, with the sort of solid foundation that Kristian's put in place, I feel like it couldn't be a better time or better situation to make that, for me to take that step. And I think that it's we're sad to see Kristian go, but the other thing about it is the smoothness of the transition, I think, is going to really benefit the organization. And as he's talked about, I'm hesitating a little bit to make this point, but Kristian's talking about some difficult things that he's facing, and we wish him the best with all that. My son just graduated from high school and started at the University of Louisville on Monday, and I am smiling from ear to ear as an empty nester, and this is just really a great time in my life to be able to sort of step into this added level of responsibility at LVA, and I just can't wait to kind of lean into all the things.
Were you sitting around wondering, like, what the heck am I going to do with all my free time?
Yeah, and that was
All your pocket knighs were sharpened, all your
Right.
cabinets were arranged, like there was nothing left to do at home. So.
That's right. Yeah, like I've been talking with people in the office about how, like, I have like phantom responsibility pangs. Like, it's like gets to be dinner time or whatever, and I'm looking around wondering where my son is, if he needs me to whatever do this or that or prompt him, and so I don't have to do that anymore.
Well, one of the things, talking about Kristian's time here too, is we see in the news that there are other organizations in town who are going through some financial crises and are struggling to deal with those. Commonwealth Theater Center has had a pretty good success with a campaign, and you should. I'll just tell you, I was trying to find a thing, but there's a really nice concert this Sunday that they have going on. You should go to their social media and find out about it. Emily Albrink is one of the performers. Anyway, maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But and the Louisville Ballet, and so one of the questions in all that is, like, Kristian, you came in right in the middle of the pandemic. It was July 2020, and LVA was as vulnerable to those turbulent times as anybody. Yet we're in such good shape. I mean, like, what did you do? What was going on that we've had maybe a slightly different result, that we've had, besides the good fortune of having you there, but what was your approach or your thoughts coming into an organization at that time?
Sure. I think that it was an interesting time to come from out of town, and it was a little bit of a two-edged sword. But our entire sector, is facing challenges in the changes in philanthropy, in the changes of how people sort of exercise their free choice time, and that's across the board. Some of our peer organizations and legacy organizations, not singling out the like ballet or symphony, but a lot of those across the country are struggling, as are art museums. I think I came in to Louisville and did a lot of listening. I mean, I had the fortune to inherit a 112-year-old organization that has had some amazingly robust times where we were the leading arts organization in town. And we've had some lead times where it was challenging. Where were we going to make payroll, as happens with a 112-year-old organization? Also, we were in the middle of everyone pivoting for COVID. We were in the middle of a sort of long overdue and needed social justice movement in a town that was an epicenter nationally for that. And so a lot of it was coming in to listen. And I think that the pivots that we made, and I say we because this was a whole staff effort, came from really listening to the community. As Grant said, I think arts education has been an anchor of what we've been doing. We'll be in our 100th year of our CFAC classes next year. But to the point where a lot of
that's children's fine art classes, and we're so used to the acronym.
You know, for Tracy in Wisconsin, that's children's fine arts classes. So we have local working artists were saying, you do arts education, but what are you doing for us? And so I think a lot of the stability and growth has come out of how are we responsive to emerging mid-career and later artists, while at the same time maintaining the quality and expanding the offerings of CFAC at a decent pace. But the growth came from listening and then having a staff and community that said yes and. I never had to worry about people on staff, both of you and everyone on staff, saying I don't think we can do this. It was like, how do we figure out a way to do it? And I think that the support followed. So.
Well, but one of your challenges too was that the staff was all working from home. That was a very, very dangerous time. So you and I had some face-to-face time in that period, and you did meet the staff, but it was 8 months or something before staff was fully back into the office.
Sure. Well, I mean, you have to have flexibility, and as a leader, again, that was tough for everyone. It wasn't just tough for LVA, and so.
I guess I'm thinking about your challenge in getting to know staff.
Yeah, you move at the pace that you move. You don't try to force things and be disingenuous. You try to engage as much as you can in that virtual space, recognizing that everything at that point was in a virtual space and there was fatigue, and you give people the grace that no one is going to be working in an arts nonprofit, especially everyone that I inherited who have been there for a long time. People aren't working there to get stock options and bonuses. They're there because they care about the mission. And so give them the grace to thrive and give them ownership over the organization. Try not to micromanage them, remove roadblocks, and then let them do what they do well and let them thrive and why they're a part of the organization and why they wake up every day feeling good going to work. I don't know, giving your staff in any business, whether it's a nonprofit, a for-profit, or whatever, should always be your priority. They are the ones that deliver your message, your product. They're the ones that make your widgets. They're the ones that create a corporate culture. A corporate culture comes from a synergy between the top and the bottom. It's not top down. And so that all has to be built on trust and time. And you should never come in day one assuming that you know everything, but you should also come in and push back, and you should ask questions in a respectful way. I mean, I don't know. These are the soft skills that are hard to teach, but you learn over time by having good mentors and good bosses that you report to. You also learn a lot by having bad bosses and things that you see that you wouldn't do. I mean, it's kind of comes out of an experience, and so I'm another good reason why we're in financial shape is speaking of skill sets. Grant has been in charge of our grants. Keith's been in charge of our Keith's. Taylor's in charge of all of our tailoring needs. That's just how we do it at LVA. But Grant has done a phenomenal job of taking his skills of communicating in sort of written language and the data sets and presenting what we do in a way that creates a compelling narrative for funders and granting agencies to succeed. You've done a phenomenal job of connecting with the arts community, being the voice of LVA both on the radio and at every single art opening, play opening. I mean, you're everywhere. The entire staff has done a great job. So that success is basically, again, getting good people and thanking them for what they do and empowering them and setting them on their way.
Okay. Well, let's turn to Grant here for a second. So, going back to those early days, Grant. I mean, like, how would you describe like your own development with Kristian in this It's 3 years and 2 months, like from that point to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, as he's talking, I'm thinking about a lot of things. I'm kind of casting my mind back to that time. I think I speak for myself, but the staff was already really, I think, pretty bonded. I think, and that this is just one of my thoughts is that that's truly unique. It's one thing to have people who are committed to the mission and who have a lot of wherewithal with regard to their experience and skill sets. And we have that, but like we have the next level, which is kind of like, I don't know, I think it's extremely rare that everybody also genuinely just really likes each other. We hang out, we enjoy running into each other when we see each other in town. It's like probably, I can say without doubt, the most family-like, connected, positive work environment I've ever been part of. So that helped, but it also meant that, as we were waiting for the new person to come, which ended up being Kristian, there was a little bit, for me anyway, there was a question of like, okay, will this new element somehow change that, or will it work with that? And Kristian absolutely, worked with that. And as you say, it was a little bit of a slow motion transition in the sense that it was pandemic. We were working remotely. So it wasn't quite the same as if he would have just been in the office every day. So it took a little time, and I don't know if that helped or, whatever. It was what it was, but it certainly was the case that, Kristian just became part of that. He celebrated that. He fostered that. It only, I think, continued and became, the group just became even more, kind of closely connected with each other as a result of Kristian's arrival. For myself, I got to, I'm eternally grateful to Kristian for pretty early on, expressing confidence in my abilities and bringing me into a kind of advisory capacity that was, I think, hopefully was helpful for him. It allowed me to get a closer view of operations. And, he and I, again, like he talks about in those early days, we were thinking about how do we handle COVID safety? How do we respond to, the social justice stuff that's just, completely a focus right now for everybody, certainly in our sector and beyond. And, we sat in his office a lot in those early days thinking about what do we do? What do we say? How do we respond to this or that? And what's our way forward with regard to initiatives, programs? And, so that really certainly helped me to, understand Kristian, get to know him, work closely with him, and it was all to the good in terms of what followed from that.
Okay. I have to remind everybody you are listening to WXOX LP in Louisville, Kentucky, 97.1 on the dial, rxfm.com, streaming to the world. And I want to point out to you that the recent wildfires in Maui are the deadliest in recent American history. The American Red Cross has hundreds of workers on the ground in Hawaii, and they are working around the clock to help and support people who have been impacted. You can learn more about the Red Cross and support their work by visiting redcross.org. And give blood, people. There's lots of places to go do that. Never, always a good idea, never the wrong thing when there's a crisis or even when there's not a crisis. And also, come back around to WXOX on Tuesdays. High and Low, by hook or crook, the Big Score Show with Dr. K brings you unearthed gems and forgotten classics of soul, blues, R&B, and more. That's the Big Score with Dr. K every Tuesday, 5 to 6 p.m. here on WXOX LP 97.1 in Louisville. And also just want to put out the reminder, the Louisville Fringe Festival is taking place right now in the LVA building. It goes through Saturday, so be sure and check out the information about the Louisville Fringe Festival through their social media and LouisvilleFringe.com. LouisvilleFringeFest.com, I believe is what it is. So, but let's get back. We're talking here with, this is Artist Talk with LVA. I'm Keith Waits. We're talking with Kristian Anderson, outgoing Executive Director, and Grant Johnson, incoming Interim Director, but who has been a long-term member of the staff, so not a new face in our world.
Yeah, I guess, Keith, thank you for sort of that transition question. I would actually throw that back to you as the longest serving member of LVA staff who's been through the most staff transitions. How are you? How are you feeling about all of it, and what are your thoughts?
I'm struggling with your departure because I'm going to miss you. I'm going to miss you as a boss, as a leader, and as a friend. And I think that's true for the staff. I don't like to pretend to speak for people, but I think Grant would agree as he was talking about this sort of atmosphere. I think everybody's going to miss you, but I also think that we were strong when you came, but I think we're stronger. Since in the time that you've been here, I think you're exactly what the organization needed, and but I'm really sorry to see you go. And I have confidence in Grant, but I think that there were a lot of people in the community who feel that way, who felt like, oh, this is the kind of person who should be leading the organization. And I think due respect, don't mean to, but it has been a struggle to find somebody with this mix of talents over time. You talked about a lean time. There was a very lean time in 2004, and I won't go into all the details, but the organization's been sort of coming up from that low point for several years now. And, I think we were very lucky to find you. And I think it also, gives, so it gives so much for the organization, but I also think it gives for Grant, like the best kind of example of how to lead the organization moving forward.
And I'll pick up right there and say, I will say that, you asked how did I sort of grow in the time that Kristian was
Right.
here, like what effect of that was there. And absolutely anyway, but Kristian has sort of modeled some specific aspects of how to do that well, that I think I'll be carrying forward. I'm not Kristian, but I think there's a lot that I've learned in terms of very specific kinds of team building and collaboration styles with a staff that will continue, I hope, in very much the same vein. I did think of something though that I wanted, like an anecdote.
Ooh, I love it.
So-
I love an anecdote.
I know you do. So when you asked about like when he came, like how did that affect me, or how did that land with me or whatever, and I will say, like I speak for myself, but I wasn't real sure. Like I wasn't sure if this would be somebody who would kind of come in and want to do like a skills assessment and like remap the staff skills onto different
Right.
like kind of really whatever, shake things up.
He could have been a disruptor.
He could have been a disruptor, and so not knowing, one of the things I did early, and I'm sure you remember this, but I don't know if you ever think about it since then. But one of the things I did early on was I sort of put together a presentation because I'd been doing grants, and I felt like that was a good fit for me, and I wanted to keep doing that basically. And I wasn't sure. Like I thought, well, maybe Kristian's like a real crack grant writer.
Were you going to have to make a case for yourself?
Exactly, right. And so like I asked, hey, could we talk at this particular time or whatever? And I had this, at one point prior to Kristian's coming, I had created a spreadsheet that was so enormous that it had to be printed on multiple pieces of paper and taped together. And it's about 3 feet wide and probably 6 or 7 feet long.
And fortunately, we had the table for it.
Yeah. And so I brought that in, and I was going to blow his hair back with like all the my diligent fine-grained work on grants and stuff, and I rolled it out, and I said, well, we could do this and this and this, and I was kind of ready with my pitch for why like I should be your guy to keep doing grant. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And and he's just sort of like, he listened to it all very patiently, and he sort of he looked at the chart and stood there and heard my whole spiel. And he said, he thanked me for it, and he said, yeah, that's great. Thank you, thank you very much for doing that. And I realized, sort of, kind of in that moment, but then in the days immediately after that, it probably really, wasn't necessary. Like he was gonna let the people that were there doing what they were doing kind of keep doing it. Like he wasn't gonna be somebody that was gonna come in and really need to impose his own whatever hand onto everything and sort of tweak everything to be that the way he wanted to set it on the control board or something like that. His approach was to say, well, this is happening, this is rolling, people are doing what they're doing, and I'm going to let them do that, and not without any oversight or any focusing of effort or whatever. But anyway, I felt like it was fun. I appreciated realizing that I probably didn't need to make quite such a diligent pitch.
It was very impressive. And I was like, if this man goes to this level of the pitch, like, yeah.
A detail-oriented person.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, I mean, I think it speaks to leadership in general, right? Like, when you have been in the arts for as long as all of us have, we have done modicums of, I think, everybody's job, like whether it was at LVA or another space. Like, I've had to run social media for organizations. As a curator for a long time, I've had to write grants. Like, I mean, I know one of the things, speaking of anecdotes, is like I had a radio show for 4 years when I was in Salt Lake before I came here, and I know people were razzing Keith like, oh, is he going to come and take over the radio show? And it's like, there's a lot of stuff it's not that I can't do almost everything, it's that I don't have to do it, nor should I be spending my time doing those sort of things, because everyone around me has been doing it and does it very well. It might, again, not be the same way I do it, but back to standing on ceremony, my way isn't necessarily the right way. It's the way I do it. But there are other fine ways to do it. And then every once in a while, I also think you got to keep your powder dry for when you really do have something as the leader where you do have to put your foot down and say, like, all right, this is a roundtable approach, but like, I'm King Arthur,
Yeah.
Is what it is. And like, if you nitpick or you step in on small things, people start kind of tuning you out, and everything sort of takes on.
Well, the phrase you've used so often is benevolent dictator. You were our benevolent dictator. But actually, I think you were more benevolent than dictator. But it was sort of you said that a lot. I mean, for my own part, I'll say, like, yes, there was the razzing about like, oh, that may be it for you in the show, but because he's done radio. But I was actually thinking more about the fact that, and we've had lots of discussions about this, and you've been very, very supportive and encouraging, but you are a very experienced curator internationally, yet you have not curated a show at LVA or ever pushed that on me or enforced that. You've given me advice and counsel, but you never, that to me would have been one of the most logical things to see you doing, would be to exercise that experience, and I would have welcomed it. It would have been great, but you were, and I don't know, you read something in me. I think you were very good about reading people too, being in the office with you those first months, because I had gone back to the office by myself because I needed the structure of going in at that time when everybody else was working from home and I was the only one. But then when you came in, you would have phone calls or Zoom meetings with staff, board, different kinds of things. We were doing some Zoom to introduce you to people because we couldn't have social events, and I saw very quickly you are a very quick and accurate read of people. Like you sort of see things about them beyond whatever surface level. So because I kept thinking, oh, I might have to explain something, and I did sometimes with some of the people, but like you had a very good read on all the staff, for example, after first sort of meetings with them. So you gave me a lot of space to call myself a curator. So
a goal of a good leader should be to raise people up and ultimately make yourself, I guess, maybe not redundant in an organization, but you should train people up to move up in the careers or whatever it is that they want to do. And if you aren't giving them those opportunities, if you aren't pushing them, or if you're taking whatever limelight spaces from people, you're not being a leader at that point. I don't know what you're doing, but you're not getting people to grow. So planned obsolescence, I guess, should be the goal of any leader.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking about a couple of things that you've already touched on, which is that one of them is that the staff at LVA are there because this is their passion. They are personally, absolutely invested in the mission of the organization, which is to say they are personally completely committed to the beneficial value of an arts culture in the city where they live. and everywhere else. But that is not something that you commit to professionally, as Kristian has already said, because you want to have a big stock portfolio. It's something you commit to because, frankly, you want to be able to sleep well at night, and you want to, you just want to lean into something that brings you enormous satisfaction, and so the fact that the people are there for that reason means that, in a certain sense, LVA's mission of nurturing local artists throughout their creative life cycle extends to the staff. Everyone on staff has some deep connection to the art. Most of them are, including myself included, are practicing artists, or else they have a personal involvement with art outside of the office. And so, as you're talking about this idea of trying to bring people along and provide them an opportunity to evolve and advance in their own skill sets and work and everything like that, I mean, essentially, being a staff member at LVA is one way that you connect with the overall mission of LVA. And I hadn't really thought about it in quite those terms, but I think that's an accurate and helpful way to think about what it means to be part of the LVA staff.
I think I would be derelict. I know I spend a lot of time thanking people, and we've spent a lot of time on the staff, of which I think is the sort of the most important.
But here's your
part.
opportunity. You have a microphone.
Thank you. I mean, but I think that the community and the board needs a huge thank you from me for the success of LVA over the last 3 years. Boards are funny things, right? Like, I have both been on the running arts nonprofit side, so I've had to manage boards, and I have been on boards, and boards are like hyper volunteers, right? They are chosen to represent the community. Not only is it a volunteer thing, but oftentimes they pay to be on a board, so they're actually sort of giving you money to come and volunteer because they love your mission and they support you. And so it's not a light commitment to be on any board. So whether it's LVA's board, WXOX's board, any board it should be taken with a level of gravitas and responsibility, because it's an important thing to do. So I want to thank everyone on the LVA board for being active and present and showing up to take out trash and hang lights, and also sort of give advice on strategic planning and everything sort of in between. And to the local arts community, who has never been shy with their opinions, which I appreciate, who show up, who send me emails or call to thank us for what we're doing, but also asking questions, and back to that sort of that engaged level. There's still, I feel good about what I did in 3 years. I wish there was always more time and I had more energy. Knowing even in this last 6 months, or I'll even say 2023, as I started to get more tired, you want to be out, you want to be at everything, you want to meet every artist, you want to help everybody, and I sort of feel like, speaking of this time of, it's time for me to leave. My energy level was going down, but everyone was always excited to be there. This organization, running this organization, comes with this level of responsibility, and the community has embraced what it is that we've been trying to do. Me, LVA, all of the staff members, and so I want to thank everyone for always showing up, for participating. I'm both leading LVA, but LVA also leads the local arts community, and so in that sense, I'm super grateful to everyone.
Let's shift a little bit. I've got a few more minutes here before we have to pause, but let's talk then about the future, Grant. Let's talk about LVA's future. Beyond, there's a certain amount of stepping in and maintaining, and keeping everything rolling, keeping the momentum going. But what do you think about LVA's future? You're interim director. I don't know if you have other plans, but what do you think about? What is it in 2 years or 3 years for LVA?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. I will say that I think me being ready and equipped, as you've already talked about, to kind of step into this role pretty seamlessly, is a great benefit to LVA. It feels good and feels like a right fit for me, and the interim period is one of, for the most part, steady as she goes, right? I will keep my eyes and ears open for opportunities that seem like they must not be missed, but the focus will be on, running the program roster, which is robust, as I think we can all agree, running it, keeping it going, but also looking for ways to just do it a little bit better. And that's not to say that this is something that Kristian wasn't pursuing. It's things that are already underway in terms of how can we better account for our sort of institutional knowledge and records keeping and things like that, and how can we have that help drive continual improvement of programs. So it's just sort of like kind of some of the hidden stuff that's not real visible outside the organization, but that underlies the best possible delivery of the programs that are already in place. That's going to be my focus during the interim time. But your question about like what do I see as kind of a future for LVA, and I do hope to be in whatever capacity at LVA, frankly, for a long time. And
Same here.
I'm
older. You might be there longer than me. But
I'm gonna ask to be able to come back to another small anecdote here in a second. But I want to answer your question, which is, I think LVA. I have expansive feelings about LVA's potential. I think that LVA is doing wonderful things. I also think the sky is kind of the limit in terms of what LVA could be doing. And that is no way to throw shade at anything that's already going or anything like that. I think LVA's youth education programs can grow. I think LVA's support for local professional artists and aspiring professional artists can have more dimension to it and can also expand and grow. The challenge is always, how do you match organizational capacity to the program ambitions? And we're at a place right now where we've got I think a really, really rich set of programs, and one of the things I'll be doing is working to make sure that organizational capacity continues to match and support that, and that's you can't be overextended in terms of, maybe there's a great program that we're not doing that we could be doing, but if we don't have a way, if we can't run it right, if we can't do it at the level of excellence that we've established, then we can't do it. So those are it can be hard sometimes to figure out, like, where's the tipping point where you hire another full-time person or things like that. But in the interim, it'll be, again, just trying to do what we're doing a little bit better every day, and then we'll get through to a transition to a permanent person.
And I can't believe how fast it's come around, but I want to remind you, you're listening to WXOX LP in Louisville, Kentucky, 97.1 on the radio dial, artxfm.com, streaming online, because, this is a great conversation, because the time is just whizzing by. I want to tell you to come back and listen to, on Sundays from noon to 1, Chiaroscura with Aaron Hartley is an exploration of light, dark, and in-between soundscapes, pitting the experimental, noisy, and weird against the beautiful and ethereal. I got to see my buddy Aaron last night at a staff meeting, but he used to follow me, and I miss you, Aaron. Good luck. But listen to that show. And also, just I mentioned earlier, and I just want to, I hate when I mention something, event is The Voices of Summer. It's a concert featuring Emily Albrink and Carly Johnson. So tickets are available at my eyes are bad, psychlou.org. But you can go to their social media and find out more about it. That's happening Sunday afternoon. And once again, Fringe Festival happening at the LVA building. One of the things that I think about, that I think is one of the great challenges of LVA from inside, is that we do have such a robust roster of programs happening and things happening, and that I've often felt over the years that there are many people who know us just for the one thing. There are families that know us just for children's fine art classes. There are artists who just know us for whatever we're exhibiting or not exhibiting. And that people have a relationship with one arm or the other, but rarely do people understand the breadth and range of all of the programming. And I don't know how to really, I think, we can sit here and talk about it and stuff like that, but and I'm directing this to you, Grant, is do you have ideas about how to, and that's a communication issue, and I think we have been working on it.
Yeah. I think this idea of telling not just the story of this program or that program, CFAC, Artist Resource Series, CPI. I think we've done a pretty good job of that. I think the next level is to tell the story about how all those things connect to each other, right? And so, for example, Claire Hearn, who has made Curate, Purchase, Inspire possible, is a children's fine art class alum. You know?
And a phenomenal artist.
And a phenomenal,
Yes.
and an artist in town who has at various times had studio space, you know, in an LVA's facility. So that the way in which all of the programmatic strands weave together to create a rich tapestry is I think the next, you know, the story that we need to start really telling better. And I think, and as you're talking, I realize that I think a way to really demonstrate, or the place where a lot of that is going to come together and is already coming together, is our facility in Portland, which we're calling the Center for Art and Creativity on Lytle Street there, because that's where we currently have now expanded capacity to do exhibits at LVA Gallery. We've run summer camps there. We will, I think, be running some classes there, if not this fall, at least soon. The plans for that building, they also include artist studios, which are fully occupied at this point. And having working artists with studios that are under the same roof, where we have exhibits, where we have youth art education happening, to me, that is the sort of the synecdoche of this whole idea of the way the programs work with each other. My vision is that children who are coming for classes at that facility are able to see inspiring, potentially inflection point kinds of exhibits in the gallery, but then also they're able to maybe go visit with a studio artist upstairs and see what that looks like, and be able to envision a life as an artist and understand that. And frankly, not just the students, but their parents and family members. I often say that, I was always going to be an artist. I was hoarding paper and pencils from my earliest memories, but I never stepped foot into a professional working artist studio until I was in college. And, my parents just weren't in that world. They didn't have any kind of familiarity with that. It was
Right.
and when I was stepping out as an adult into my own life, it was hard for them to understand what it meant that I was looking at a career in art. And I think the facility is one of the key ways that we will be able to kind of tell that story that brings all of the broad programming together and shows how it supports the different aspects of it, support each other, enrich each other, enhance each other, etc. But I want to tell my anecdote.
Tell your anecdote.
So I moved here with my wife, Jonna Siegel. I'm going to give a little shout out to Jonna. She is faculty at the U of L Theater Arts Department. And we came here in 2016. We had one weekend, it was Memorial Day weekend, to find a house to live in. And we got connected with a great realtor who's still a friend. And we were hanging out at our realtor's poolside after having got the house.
Is this Mo's?
No, it's not Mo's. It's I'll give another shout out, John and Sarah Gray. Sarah Gray was our realtor. And we were sitting there, and Erin Reed, who at the time was an LVA staff member, was there, a friend of the Grays. And we just got chatting about who are you, what do you do? Erin talked about LVA, and I sat there, my eyes getting bigger and bigger every sentence she said about what LVA was all about. And I thought, you know what, that's where I need to be. Because again, we were coming for Jonna's work, and I needed to figure out what I was going to do here in Louisville. So that was summer 2016. I took 2 years, but I was hired in summer of 2018 to come to LVA, and now this, right? So I think I don't know, it's one of those weird things. I look back on that and it seems so weird that, we literally left that little get together and we're driving to our hotel or wherever we were staying. And I said to John, yeah, LVA sounds like the right place for me.
Cool. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, that's the right. That's
Cool
the
story,
right.
man.
That's the right response. Yeah, that's all it needs.
Well, and it is, I always say about the show, it's a real conversation. I don't have like a list of questions like, I need to get to question number 8, because I'm also sitting here and because you were having an anecdote, and you both have, in terms of your behavior, demeanor in office, your sort of personas have certain aspects of humor. Kristian is big on puns, and he hasn't dropped a one in this interview. I'm a little bit surprised.
Just before the microphone was on, we hit like 7 of them.
I know.
Plus,
see, you shouldn't have.
It's all been so serious. I'm verklempt because I'm talking about my time, and I have so much gratitude At the end of the day, I mean, I have really loved this job, and it has been the best job that I have ever had. And so I'm glad that I approach every day sort of in the office with humor that is recognized. But I always say that I don't particularly take myself seriously, but I do take the responsibility of leading a staff, of having the organization serve the community exceptionally seriously. I know that there are people who depend on the work that I do to get their paychecks, to pay their mortgages, to have health insurance if there's a medical crisis, and the grace to let people do what they need to do to take care of aging parents or kids or whatever it happens to be. And so, I mean, I think all of the puns are there, but that is to sort of make how I feel like what it is that we do. I mean, I take it all. I take that very seriously. So no more puns anymore. Nothing but serious from now on.
Yeah,
serious.
This can be
serious face.
I'll just say, yeah, for any LVA staff that are listening, it's going to be, we'll have a humor-free office from this point forward. That's going to be one of the first changes I'll make. No more jokes. No more fun.
Nope.
It's all business all the time.
Well, I wasn't looking just to prompt a final 10 minutes of jokes, but I mean, it's sort of like, it's a part of, I think, why, your sense of humor, your levity. I mean, I remember how excited you got when you found out that there was an honorific to be a Kentucky colonel, and you were just like, that became your number one priority over everything.
And thanks to you, made it happen. And I am a Kentucky colonel in good standing, and I want to thank the Kentucky colonels throughout the globe
Yes,
for supporting Louisville Visual Art.
That's right.
So
That's right. I do, but to bring us back to a very serious note, no, I think it's important for me to also say that, you've asked about how do I feel about the transition, and I will say, one of the things that I think about every time I think about it is the responsibility that I have to the people that are working there, and that is the top of my, that's my most important thing, is to make sure that the people who are working there will be able to continue to work there and will be supported in the way that, again, Kristian has modeled, which has been, I think, ideally supportive and responsive and diligent and all that thing. So, yeah.
But I have to have a dad joke.
You gotta have a dad joke?
I think we have to have a dad joke.
Oh man,
that's Grant's.
That's Grant's
wheelhouse.
thing. Grant
of
creates
course, like you
dad
can't, you
jokes.
just can't.
I
can't just do one like that.
I thought maybe you had
I know,
one.
I should
you've
have
been
one,
working
shouldn't I?
on.
I should have
didn't
done this. I was so diligent in my presentation about the grants. I should have a spreadsheet of dad jokes, really. That should be 3 feet wide and 6 feet long.
I think the theory of dad jokes and the theory of puns is that they're not really, they come when they come, so
Yeah.
we'll
but
think on it.
But
I got 10 minutes. I can probably refine it.
But I appreciate that Grant's dad jokes, there is a craft to them, and sometimes we hear one that might be a work in progress, where I think it's like a little incubator where he can come into the office and he can see sort of, gauge the reaction, see if it needs to be fine-tuned. I mean, I don't know.
Totally.
Sometimes they just absolutely kill, like they're perfect, and sometimes though and he'll say like, I've been working.
That one's not quite good.
So we're like the first. Well, maybe
You are.
maybe John. I don't know, but.
Oh yeah, Jonna has suffers more than anyone else with regard to this.
Well, and I figure you were gonna maybe do a little book someday, of all the ones you've written, and you ought to.
I'm thinking about it.
I mean,
Thinking about it.
I've seen much less interesting joke books over time, so I would say yes, go for it.
But I mean, but the sort of the non-punchline aspect of this is that we have a great I never have to sort of like grit my teeth and put my hands in my pockets and look at my toes and shuffle to work. I'm ready to be there every day. I hope that's true for most of my colleagues. It certainly seems like we do a lot of work. In fact, I was also thinking that as a grant writer, I have at my fingertips lots of facts about LVA, and one of them is that LVA, with 7 full-time staff, maintains 100 partnerships a year, 100 active partnerships a year. And there's different ways to measure, the scope of what we're doing. But for me, that one, for whatever reason, that one just always really kind of lands with me as being pretty amazing,
And again, I think it goes to our point earlier about how many people in the community understand all of the things that LVA is doing.
Right.
And it's a I would dare say a small number.
Right. But we get part of the way we're able to be so productive is that we're hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, and I we could talk about other staff, but I think a lot of the, I don't know, like, you know, some of the sense of humors of the staff is sort of like, you know, like Amy has a great deadpan, but that, you know, that's all I'm gonna say about. I don't want to get into too much inside baseball about the staff, but
Yeah, everyone on staff has an amazing sense of humor. Everyone's timing is different.
I think we've yet to really. We're still waiting to see sort of what Taylor's sense of humor is like, and because she's our newest.
I feel good about it. I feel good about it. I feel like it's you know, it's like, hey, you have to get comfortable. It takes a little time.
Yeah, I don't think she's been there long enough to really open it up.
Yeah, but I'm watching her responses to things that are happening, and I feel good. I feel good about it. I feel like
Taylor's standing here video. Taylor Sanders, ladies and gentlemen, the newest member
and
of
she's
the LVA
doing a
team.
great job of not laughing audibly because we are on the radio.
It would be fine, actually. I don't know.
You know, Keith, and ultimately, you know, I could have never taken this job away from you. You are a born storyteller. I mean, you know, I joke that being from Minnesota, like Minnesotans, we take a long story and make it short. And, you know, Keith to me is the epitome of sort of the Louisville, take a short story and make it long. And I don't want to let the details get in the way of a good, like, mostly true story. But I remember I was here early and I was like, oh, I think I need to stop at a Walgreens or do something. And I think I was also going up generally towards St. Matthews. And I'm like, do you know this? And he's like, oh yeah, the Walgreens, that's by the old Sears building. And my dad used to work in that old Sears building. And there was something about a White Castle that he shot a movie in. And, you know, 10, 15 minutes go by and I'm nodding. And he comes up for a breath and he's pointing his finger and I'm like, that's great, but where is the Walgreens? So, you know, I could have never taken this away from you, my friend.
For the record, my dad didn't work in the Sears building, but I was trying to.
I know he's a bus driver. I know. Like I said, don't let the actual facts.
You're conflating different stories, and that's fine. But anyway, I just want. But
I'm looking at the clock, and I remember it reminded me of a dad joke.
Oh,
What's the best time to go to the dentist?
I don't know.
2:30. 2:30.
I get it.
Taylor's about to.
This is where I'm not a good audience. I'm not a loud laugher. Like my friend Barrett would be. We'd have to turn the microphone down. But
You mean
That's a good dad
Barrett,
joke.
the first guest ever on Arts?
Barrett was my first guest
when
when I joined in, and which
I listen to your stories.
No, I know you do.
I distilled that down. I mean, it was a half an hour story when you told me it, but I distilled it down.
No, I can't tell you how many times we've been sitting there and you go like, so Keith, can you answer this question without telling me a story? I just need the information. And it was when you were because you were trying to answer somebody, you were writing, like you were in the middle of doing a thing and you were, yeah. I know, I do it.
It's great.
Yeah. But I need
Every once in a while, listening
do
to
it in
Keith's
crisis.
long version will give you some information that is useful.
Well, and I think early on I was
Might
trying
not be
to
part
give
of
you
the
some
question you
sense
asked.
of Louisville history with some of those stories.
Hey, man, whatever that old Sears building was seems to be the epicenter of a lot of people's lives.
For sure, yeah. And
Well,
that's before my time too, but yeah, like I feel it. I feel that there's the gravity there.
If you're of a certain age. Because it hasn't been the old Sears or any Sears for quite a while, but I probably that came up in reference to the fact that LVA once had a space in that building after it was Sears.
Yeah.
Called Artopia, just so we're dotting.
Or how are we going to download all of Keith's lore? Like, we got to start doing that now.
Well, you know, they're starting to put like neurons into people's brains to help people who have like paralysis talk. So you know what we're basically going to do is we're going to upload them into the matrix.
We're just going to buy a helmet that's covered with blinking lights.
Yeah, he's going to be our
colander.
Yeah.
With wires.
Yeah, like in the movies.
That's right.
You're gonna be in the Matrix.
Back to the Future, I think. Didn't they have a thing like that at one point where he's wearing? And all the needles go. All right, well, it's about time to wrap it up. Although, just to let you know, I am sticking around to do the next hour for the Professor Dodge. He had to be called out of town for a work thing. So
You had to get out of Dodge?
Yeah.
We
got one.
11th hour. Literally,
yes.
It's almost 11 o'clock.
See, that was just a little thing. Was I had on the air get a pun and a dad joke.
But you
So
have to-
now I'm happy.
You just have to let them.
Accomplished.
You have to let them go naturally.
I know. Well,
Can't force it.
I know it wasn't. Well, but see, I think I did sort of raise a certain awareness in your minds in that thing, so we could get there. So I'll just tell you, are listening to WXOX LP. So this is Artist Talk with LVA. I'm Keith Waits, and I have had the great pleasure to talk to Kristian Anderson and Grant Johnson. Kristian Anderson, again, to remind you, is our outgoing executive director after 3 years and 2 months of epic success, and Grant Johnson coming in to fill those Nike shoes as interim director, who has been a part of LVA staff for 5 years. So very smooth transition. I don't know. Everybody's already following instructions and stuff.
Smooth. There aren't enough O's in smooth.
Yeah,
for
there
this
aren't.
transition.
Can't put enough.
Smooth as Grant's head.
Yep. Yep. That's right.
Grant's better than
Yeah. I've always been told I had a face for radio.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you guys for being here today.
Thank you, Grant.
And
Thank
again,
you,
just-
Kristian.
I'm just gonna play music here for the next hour, so you won't. You'll hear me a little bit more, but mostly you're gonna hear some music.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you, guys. And so we'll start off here to end the hour with a little Steely Dan, Change of the Guard.